Well, here we are again. It's another day. It's another very hot day out. Well, it could get worse, but I saw 34 degrees Celsius on our thermometer earlier. So again, I am not interested in playing outside. But I have been looking through some photos. I think I mentioned that, and I came across a painting that I did a number of years ago, and I really liked. I think I said I really liked the character of it, and I do. So I kind of like to maintain that on this canvas. I'll show you the photograph of the original painting here, and I don't know how well that's going to show up. I think that's not too bad. No, the photograph doesn't show the whole painting. That's okay. I'll just make it up as I go. But I like the feeling of it. It's very dramatic. Dark darks and light lights. On the flip side, I like that one too, but I like the composition of this one better. And I'm playing with the 2436. I think this will suit it very well. So I'll just move that out of the way. I'm going to keep it in one hand, or close by anyway, so that I can sort of use it as a guide. And as you can see, I laid in a couple of horizons here. Horizons, well, where the water meets the distant bit of land. You know, I like this okay, but I don't like it ending. I think, let's talk about this a little more. I think that as much as I like the painting, I would like to, in this one, the interest, the strength is really in the foreground. And we have a bit of the goalpost effect going on here again. And in my next iteration of it, I would like to make that less so. I would like to soften the light on these foreground trees and maybe draw these hills right across the painting and maybe put a cabin in there. And it's funny, even though the cabin, you know, a cabin or the indication of a cabin or a shed may not be super high value or super high chroma, it's the fact of the human element existing within the painting that will draw the eye to that cabin. It's just like a wildlife artist. Everybody, you know, if it's a wildlife painting, people will look at the wildlife rather than the surrounding stuff. That alone can carry the strength to bring the focal point, or to congeal the focal point, or the focal area, I should say. Focal point's always an arguable thing. Well, design-wise, maybe it's not, but anyway, I'm going to leave that alone. So I think I'm happy with this, where the lake is going to meet, or actually this was on Piers Island, where the ocean's going to meet the rocks. But instead of just coming up with a hill, I think I'd like to come about here, because I want to leave enough room for sky. And how about if we do something like that, and then work our way up. Yeah, that'll work. Oddly enough, even though all these trees that I'm going to put in are going to be in the foreground, this line is more important in general than the individual shapes of the trunks. We're going to, what do we do here? Okay, I'm going to just lay in some where the foreground meets the water. I'm not going to get too worried about things. I'm just going to give the rough plan. And I would like to lay in the main trunk. We're about a quarter of the way across it on this one, maybe a little more than a quarter of the way to the left of it. I'd like to back it off, because if I'm going to make room for this cabin, make the distance more important than on this one, then I would like to push that tree back a little bit. So if that's our center, That's a quarter. The other tree is over here. We're going to push this one back just a bit. Not very much. Not very much at all, but a little bit. You know, we might even have some of its where the root goes into the ground showing there. Maybe we'll do that, eh? Yeah, I want this tree to have a lot of character. Okay, that's just the trunk. Now, before I move ahead, I'll take out this line, and this line, and this line. And yes, all the lines that are on my sketch always get moved around a little bit, so I'm really not too worried about it. But rather than playing with details, we'll leave it at that. Okay, that's all I am doing for the moment. The reason being, I made a promise several days ago to you guys, and that is that I'm not going to do much oil painting for the next bit. So I'll do some every day, probably, but it's going to be very little, because I'm taking some time. But I still always have that urge, you know, always have the urge to do a bit. So we'll see how it goes. I'm not promising much, but here's the reboot. Again, on this painting. Okay, see you soon.